and welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire and effervescent Evan Ginsberg. But we also have all the way from, when I say coast to coast, sometimes we're not just on this coast, we're all the way on the other coast, which is all the way in England. And this is referee Bobby Salazar. I'm very glad to have you as part of the program. We've had a few other folks from the United Kingdom as part of our entourage here, and going all around the world to get wrestling thoughts and commentary from people involved in the business. So we're really glad to have you. I'm glad to have you as a Facebook friend. It's very interesting to hear about what you have going on in England. So so I want to welcome you to the program here. And so tell me about what feds that you're working with as a referee for in England right now.
So just want to start off by saying thank you very much for having me on. I really do appreciate that. So current promotions I'm working for. So at the minute I had a show this past Friday, locally for a company called Big Top Wrestling Promotions. Been working for them pretty much since I first started. Kmart Promotions. They're based up in the Barnsley area of Yorkshire. Kingdom Wrestling, I'm up there a couple of times a year up in Bradford in England, as well as I've got a couple new companies starting up next year. I'd say starting up, I'm debuting for them next year. And yeah, so there's a few companies that I've worked for previously. Lion Wrestling Promotions, Big Powerhouse Wrestling right down south, just outside Portsmouth. New British Promotions, Old School Wrestling UK. And yeah, so
that's a lot of feds. That's
yeah.
I don't always think of it. So it sounds to me like indie wrestling is really popular right now in England.
In England, yes, very much so. There's so much wrestling over here now, to the point where certain areas and certain cities and all that I would consider oversaturated with it. Which not a bad thing, because if you're a wrestling fan in Leeds, London, Bradford, Wakefield, etc., then obviously it's the best places for you, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so I've worked for 12 different companies in England to date, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So,
great, Evan, do you have a question for our guest?
How far are you from Liverpool?
From Liverpool? Oh, God. About 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
Oh, that's like New York to Philadelphia. Okay.
Yeah.
My cousin's in Ormskirk, right outside of Liverpool, and
yes,
I visit sometimes, so that's why I was curious. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down just outside of Norwich, so Paige. XWE, she's from just under an hour up the road from me. I've actually reffed her brother Roy and her nephew RKJ, and so where she's from, Norwich, is about 50 minutes to an hour up the road from me, and but Liverpool, that's about 3.5 hours. So
that's a trip. That's a trip.
Yeah, I think the closest I've ever got to Liverpool is Warrington, I believe. About 6 years back. So yeah.
The American fans, the younger fans, would know about Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and the guys from the 80s. Would the younger British fans know about Big Daddy and Giant Haystack and Adrian Street and the old school guys?
Probably, if they were to speak to the grandparents about it,
Grandparents, okay.
Yes, yeah. Because obviously back in the day of like, you know, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s, you know, everyone in the UK watched the old World of Sport days, right? So obviously, as you said, Big Daddy, Giant Haystack, McManus, Mike Jones, Finley was even on it, ex-WWE, etc. Obviously, Adrian Street, God rest his soul. You know, watching it at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, you know. But I think with the WWE, that has become so more easily accessible nowadays for, you know, like the old, you know, like the Hulkamania era than the old World Sport era. You know, through like the boom of YouTube and social media, I think people like kids and what have you would be prone to know Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Ultimate Warrior, Tito Santana, etc., more than what they would do, you know, Big Daddy, etc., because of the fact of how a majority of programs that are watched over here and popular are American made. You know what I mean? And yeah, so
So tell us. Oh, sorry.
I've been based out of New York my entire life, and in New York, you know, we know the British Bulldogs. We know Billy
yeah,
Robinson. Billy Robinson came in with the AWA.
Steve Regal.
Yeah, Steve Regal, of course. I was at Madison Square Garden. It was a legendary night when Tiger Mask wrestled Dynamite Kid in
yeah,
1982. And we're sitting there. It's a super heavyweight territory. And this was pre-internet, pre-cell phones, pre-everything. And we're sitting there with like our mouths open. We never saw anything like Dynamite Kid in his heyday and, you
yeah,
know, in the 80s. And they were doing moves that were unbelievable. And Adrian Street would headline in the territories, but he didn't make it to New York.
yeah,
Yeah, so we were aware of Adrian Street more through TV. I saw him on LA TV and Florida TV. Wherever he went, he was on top. But and he was ahead of his time with his
And
gimmick.
I'm lucky to say that I was a Facebook friend of his, of
Oh, he
Adrian's,
was
and
great. He
I
was,
talked to him quite a bit through
yeah.
Facebook.
And
Yeah.
he was not a huge guy for that era, so the
yeah, yeah,
charisma and the originality and the in-ring talent put him over because back then a lot of the territories they had these super heavyweight guys, and
yeah.
you know he was you know relatively short in comparison. Yeah.
I think the Dynamite Kid was that sort of talent who would struggle to have a bad match. Do you know what I mean? You know, you look at the matches that he had, you know, like out in Japan, the likes of, uh, um, you know, obviously British Bulldog, etc. You know, they were just so perfectly planned out, you know, spot for spot, you know, and he was definitely long before his time, like if you know what I mean. And yeah, so yeah.
I'll tell you
So
One of
something real
the
quick.
unsung heroes of British wrestling and pro wrestling. So yeah,
Tell you a funny story. I went to England on vacation. This had to be 15, 20 years ago. And my cousin takes me down to this resort town, and they had all these guys making believe they were WWE guys. Yeah, it was this guy was The Rock, but he had a British accent, and the guy was The Undertaker, but he had a British accent. And it was interesting because the venues it was like these seaside resort towns, and the venues were really old school. And some of the
yeah,
undercard guys were like these 50-year-old technicians from back in the day. I'm talking this was like in the 90s, you know. It was a while back, early 2000s, and I think after a while WWE caught on to it and put the whammy on it because
yeah,
these. You know, the posters showed The Undertaker and The Rock and Mick Foley, and it wasn't them. But the little kids, the 3-year-olds, like they thought it was them. It was fun though. Yeah.
So I do know that Brian Dixon, God rest
Yeah,
his
Brian
soul,
Dixon. That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
All Star Wrestling. So he started up All Star back in 1970. Still going on now. Brian unfortunately passed away about 2-3 years back. And he used to run literally every holiday camp going in the UK, and he used to put on like the gimmicked shows, like as they were known, and literally he'd have literally like half a dozen shows going on like at the same time at 5 or 6 different venues, and what have you, and literally have 3 to 4 shows a day, like as well, from like the same place. And yeah, like I remember like one of the best mates in the business, Big Dave, from the UK Pitbulls. He wrestled in a match against Marty Jones as the Texas Stomper, right? And again, coming out wearing what was his name, Vader, right? Coming out like wearing like his type of mask, and yeah, so. So yeah, like it was all gimmicks like with him, because as well what do you call it, like an advertising sort of type of thing to bring people in, etc. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so
Bobby, tell us, how did you get started as a referee? How did it all happen for you?
So I suppose, to say the least, I kind of accidentally got started as a ref. So I started up the Nerdic Pro podcast back in June of 2021. And in September of, I want to say, 2022, I had a gentleman by the name of the Lion, Aaron Sharp, and his partner, Mr. Briggs, who both run Lion Wrestling Promotions out of Skegness here in England. And I met Aaron and Fabrice probably about a year beforehand at a Falling Star wrestling show. Excuse me. And yeah, so had them on the podcast. And Aaron had a really big match coming up. One of the biggest matches of his 20-year career at that point, and against a gentleman by the name of Steve Sykes. And yeah, so Aaron had asked, so after every podcast that I do, I send the person a message saying, thank you very much for coming on, I much appreciate it, etc. And Aaron had said to me, do you want to come and do some podcasty bits and pieces, pre-match, post-match interviews, don't worry about ticket, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's fine, because the show was only about an hour up the road from me, in Boston, in Lincolnshire. And yeah, so he then gives me a call about a week and a half before the show, and he goes, me and Sabrice have just been watching some of your podcast, and I can tell that you're quite passionate when it comes to wrestling. And he goes, I've got a question for you. And I'm like, yeah, okay, go on. How do you feel about refereeing me and Steve Sykes? And I'm like, dropping the ball sort of thing. And yeah, so I was like, yeah, you know what? May as well. So yeah, I only intended on doing that one match, doing that one show. So yeah, go and do the show, blah blah blah. Great show, right? Absolutely fantastic shows. Full of great talent. Brett Hero, Steve Sykes, the UK Pitbulls, Furio, obviously Aaron, Steve, etc. Jack Landers, Gunnison, David Thompson, so many great talent that was on that show. It's unreal. And yeah, so that was that. And then they had another show coming up about a month or two later at the Sun Castle in Skegness for their second annual King of the Castle show. I went to it, just purely poke my head in. and like say hi to everyone. And Aaron comes up to me and goes, "Fancy refereeing a match tonight?" And I'm like, "May as well, you know." So I refereed like the second match there for between Charlie Davis and Marco Marinelli. Charlie, I've known for at this point going on 10 years through Falling Star Wrestling, company that I grew up watching, you know, and following since 2011. And yeah, and then posting about it, saying that I refed the second match. Wrestlers that I knew through the podcast and promoters that I knew through the podcast were seeing it and then getting in contact, you know, saying, you know, like, do you fancy coming to work here? Do you fancy, you know, like coming to work this show? Do you fancy like coming to work that show? And yeah, so literally within less than a year, I'd refed for 6 different companies. I think it was within like the first year, and what have you. And now, just over 3 years, this past Friday, I refereed my 214th match.
Wow, that's crazy. That's
yeah,
crazy. I gotta say this, Bobby. I gotta say this. You are wonderfully British. I mean, just everything about you is so British. And I know that you go, well, obviously you are, but I can sit there and listen to your accent like all night long. I mean, it doesn't matter what you could be reading out of the phone book. And I don't know if most of you Brits don't know this, but if you want to sell something in the United States, you get someone with a British accent, and we'll buy it. We'll think that it's like the most sophisticated thing in the universe. Doesn't matter what you're selling. We'll buy it. You watch 3/4 of the commercials in the United States have like if it's something expensive, have a British someone with a British accent. You know,
I speak the Queen's English, as they say, and yeah, so
we'll buy it. We'd still buy it. We definitely would buy anything that you're selling. So in fact, we had a guest on a few months ago who did a short indie film called The Ref Didn't See It, and I don't know if you had a chance to see that film. I'll probably have to send you a link to it.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it was really clever. But I was gonna ask you, like, how do you respond to people that say, well, you're a ref, but everything is fake in wrestling, so why do they need a ref? What's your response?
Without trying to get too PG, no, right? Stuff happens in wrestling, right? You could be the best trained pro wrestler on planet Earth, as we said earlier, the Dynamite Kid, right? One of the greatest to ever lace up like a pair of boots. He'd have obviously had his fair share of injuries, right? Coming from a ref, it annoys the daylights out of me when people say, "Oh yeah, you're just a ref. You're just here to count the pin. You're just here to count, you know, like the 3 count, the 5 count, the 10 count." All right. So when you suffer a concussion, right, when you suffer like a really bad injury, right, which could potentially be life-threatening, you never know. I'll just stand there, right, looking like a deer in the headlights, right, and, you know, just wait for you to do the pin, wait for you to tap out, blah, 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 and not care less, right? So if I'm only here to count the pin, I'm not here for your health and safety. Do you know what I mean? You know, because, yes, it pains me to say it, right? But yes, wrestling is choreographed, blah, 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 right? But people do still get hurt. People do still get injured, right? You know, and obviously referees are there for a health and safety aspect, as well as, you know, like a storyline aspect to count the pin, etc. So yeah, for people to say that the refs are just there to count the pin, I personally don't think they should be wrestling. I'm sorry, but my honest opinion is, you know, they need to have a lot more respect for referees, because until you've actually worn the black and white stripes, like a good friend of mine, Billy Madison, came on my podcast like quite recently, and made not a very good point. Until you actually don the black and white stripes, you've got no idea what that job is like. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it just annoys me when people criticize refs or speak down to refs like they're just like a piece of dirt on the bottom of someone's shoe. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Well, one thing now I can say that I've managed one British wrestler in my career, but it was quite the British wrestler. That was Nigel McGuinness. So I did have
Yes.
a
Yeah.
chance to manage him. I will say this, that the overall view of Americans of British wrestling is that it is highly precise and very technical. I
Yes.
mean, if you look at the representatives of British wrestling in the United States, they all have a pretty high standard of their work rate, of their technical ability, of their skill in the ring. And I wanted to see what your comment was about that perception that we have of British folks,
So British
with the exception of
wrestling.
the Blue Meanie. That he was an outlier on one end.
So British wrestling is very mat based, technical based, very similar to what you see or had previously seen in amateur wrestling in the Olympics, and what have you. Like, and as well, like it's very similar to Canadian wrestling as well. Like we're very mat based.
Well, World of Sport, pardon me for interrupting. The World of Sport is what really got you all started in wrestling,
Yes, it was.
and
Yeah.
and that treated wrestling very seriously. It wasn't like turned into the carnival act for many years that, here in the United States, the whole term carny came from the
Mm,
fact that wrestling was a sideshow and still is at some fairs and some, county,
mm,
things, exhibit sideshows and that kind of thing. But, in England, they always approached it with the concept that the world of sport, that it was as legitimate
mm,
as anything else that you had. And I think maybe that affects the way we even look at it now
mm.
and to wrestlers.
So with like the old school World of Sport British wrestling days, it's very similar to like the old school NWA days. As back in the day, we had a thing known as joint promotions, which was like a banner of like 5 or 6 different promotions. I think Dale Martin Promotions like was in it, like amongst a few others. And wrestlers would travel under like the joint promotions banner, working for various different companies like throughout the country, under like one British mid heavyweight title, the British like light heavyweight title, etc. Sort of very similar to the NWA, obviously with the NWA World Title, the tag team titles, the women's title, the national title, like the TV title. We had very similar things over here, but they were all done in weight classes rather than, specifically named titles, i.e., in the continental, European, US, British, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. If you ask anyone who wrestled for World of Sport back in the day, so from like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and they would deem it as a cardinal sin if you were to say that wrestling is fake, right? They would kick off like mental if you were to say that wrestling is fake, right? Because multiple of these people, in the politest way possible, broken, right? Because of wrestling. They've had no end of, surgeries all over the body because of various injuries that they'd had over the years, and throwing yourself in a ring for 350 days a year, and what like multiple times a day, like the wear and tear gets to you. Do you know what I mean? And Yeah, it would literally offend these people if you were to say that, wrestling is fake, because it's like, well, why are these people going through all these different surgeries if wrestling was fake? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, world of sport definitely was the catalyst, if you want to call it that, for modern day British wrestling. Um, I think not a lot of people uh, appreciate everything that everyone went through back in the day. Um, as I think that a lot of people nowadays in British wrestling want to, you know, do all the American style stuff. Do you know what I mean? Um, and are more, focused on, like your WWEs, your AEWs, your New Japans, etc. And it's like, well, think of your own lineage and then work off that. Do you know what I mean? That's what I try and say to people. But I'm just a ref. Like, what do I know? Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. So,
Evan, do you have another question?
Yes. What is involved physically in refereeing? Because I'm seeing more and more, at least WWE refs, who look ripped like the wrestlers. They're in tremendous shape.
yeah.
And especially on indie shows, when these guys are working 3, 4, 5 matches a day, what kind of physical shape does a ref have to be in? Because back in the day, they were usually ex-wrestlers, ex-boxers, and they were
Yeah.
not young. You know,
Yeah.
it's different today. Yeah.
So the most matches I've ever done in a show is 10. And you've got to have very good fitness, right? Obviously through I like to call it like a horseshoe type of thing. So you stay out the way of the hard cap. So doing like a loop round the ring, getting down in time to count the pin, getting down in time to ask for the submission, um, getting over to the other side of the ring in time if someone's doing moves on the ropes or in the corner. And like you need to be like, look, get out the ring, get out the corner, 1, 2, and like need to have like that sort of fitness to be able to get to these positions in time, because obviously when it comes to a pin, your shoulders need to be down, right? And I always like to count from the shoulders, right? So obviously just to see if the shoulders are up or not. So then obviously trying to then position myself to get in view of the shoulders, etc. So it does involve like a lot of moving around. Physically, it does take a bit of a toll on you, because obviously continuously like dropping down to your knees, and what have you. Like a lot of the rings that I've worked in are like concrete. So continuously like falling down to your knees and like your legs and what have you does take like a bit of a toll to your lower body. Especially if you're taking bumps in it. I feel for the wrestlers, do you know what I mean? Like who were, taking 30, 40 bumps like in a match. And yeah, so yeah, fitness is key to wanting to wrestle to begin with, and pretty much like that, like in most sports nowadays, isn't it? Especially wrestling, where you've got to be like on the ball, like running the ropes, rolling, bumping, etc. And keep it up like with your opponent and like as a ref, etc. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so I think being a fan of the pies and being a fan of the pints, I don't think would help if you want to become a like a very active ref. Well, I'm not exactly like the slimmest person on planet Earth, but people keep booking me and what have you. And yeah, so like I must be doing something right. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so
And
Now, what would you consider maybe like the greatest match that you've ever like refereed? And what do you think was the most challenging match for you to referee?
So when I first worked the deathmatch scene last November for Championship Extreme Wrestling CXW down in Braintree, down in Essex, the first sort of match I did there was a tag team dog collar death match between Bulk and Big Dave of the UK Pitbulls versus Big Lou Nixon and Brett Semtex of British Top Team. Lou Nixon was ranked number 354, I believe, in the PWI 500 this year. Yeah, I think deathmatch wrestling is an entirely different style of wrestling, like in its own right. I'd never done a death match up until then, and doing that match was just obviously co-refereeing it with Billy Madison. Fantastic ref, Billy is, and yeah, that was, there were spikes going into Dave's head. There was cake being thrown at people, barbed wire, bloody baseball bats and what have you, and fans throwing stuff into the ring, and just all sorts were being used, and it was just like, oh my god. And then blood like all over the place, and it was just, yeah, like there's some photos on my Facebook somewhere of me doing that match, and it was just, yeah, very, very, very mad. Like, I think in terms of needing to be on the ball, as they say, I think probably those death matches that I've done, probably the best match I've ever done. Obviously, like, your debut match is always one to remember. So Aaron Sharp versus Steve Sykes. That was an old school style World of Sport. 6 5-minute rounds, 2 submissions,
6
2
5-minute
pinfalls.
rounds?
Yeah, 6 5-minute rounds.
But you would never find that in the United States. We do
No.
not do rounds here in the United States. You've never, I mean, not since like the early 80s have I seen like a 2 out of 3 falls match or anything like that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's something. That's something old school enough that people might want to try again.
Yeah,
out here.
Back in the day here, on 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, every match was rounds, 6 5-minute rounds, 3 5-minute rounds, whatever. Do you know, like everything, like nothing was not a rounds match. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so this match with Aaron Sharp and Steve Sykes was 6 5-minute rounds,
Wow.
2 pinfalls, 2 submissions, or a knockout to determine a winner. So I believe, from what I remember from that match, Aaron Sharp got an immediate roll-up pin in the first round to gain the first fall. I think it was then the third round. Steve made Aaron tap out to a ankle lock, and then obviously gained a fall from that, and then so it was 1 fall apiece, and then we finished like the match, obviously still 1-1, and then we went into a sudden death round, which was no DQ. And there were thumbtacks used, there were steel chairs used, there was a table used. And after the match, I remember picking out, I think, 21 thumbtacks from the bottom of my shoes, right? Bearing in mind, this was the first time I'd ever refereed a match, and I'm just still thinking, oh, why me? Do you know what I mean? And yeah, completely like ruined my shoes, and I'm like, oh god, here we go.
Yeah, but at least you didn't have to take a body slam on him, I hope. You didn't get
yes,
bumped
they
on
did.
him.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
I didn't know. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No,
at
yeah.
least you didn't.
Thankfully. So yeah. So yeah. Other memorable matches, Jake McCluskey versus the Bruiser Samuel Jacobs was a very good match at the tail end of last year down in Gosport. Working with people like Johnny Storm, he's a British wrestling legend. He's previously challenged for the TNA X Division title many, many years ago. People like Eugene, former WWE Tag Team Champion.
Yeah.
Worked with him about a year ago for that
Densmore,
same
right?
CXW show.
Real name Densmore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Nick. Yeah. Worked with him. Harley Hudson, who's now a TNA knockout. Worked with her about 2.5 years back against Tracy at a show in Leeds. Ref a triple threat match on the same show as I ref Harley Hudson between Joey Hayes, Dan Evans, and Drill. That was a very good match.
Now, have you ever managed? Have you ever refed outside of England? Have you ever had a chance to?
I've not. No, it's literally solely been England at this point. If the opportunity ever comes to it about refereeing overseas, never say never. Do you know what I mean? Certainly I would look into it. I am quite friendly with a gentleman by the name of Justin Summers, Arlen Pro Wrestling in Canada, and we've discussed it before. And it's literally the case of when I get my passport sorted, I'd go out to Canada, poke my head in and say hi. So because at this point I'm 21 years of age, and I've never once owned a passport. So so I think obviously getting the passport sorted would obviously be something that would need to travel overseas. So
look, if you come all the way out to Canada, it's not that far to California. I could probably get you booked on a show at Wrestling for Charity and some other fans out here in California, especially if you brought some other British folks with you to work some shows. I'd be happy to connect you to some stuff here. Evan, you got some other questions for our guest?
Sure. So in the United States, we have some legendary referees, guys like Dick Worley and Johnny Red Shoes Dugan. He was so famous in the States that there was a Japanese ref called Red Shoes who took his gimmick. So in England, do you have the equivalent of legendary referees?
So I think one to say is Mal Mason, God rest his soul. He was refereeing for many decades in the old World of Sport days. People like Steve Linsky, I think, is up there. He's literally every American import that's come over to the UK, ex WWE or future WWE. He's done tours over here. Guarantee you, Steve has at least refed them at least once. He's been refereeing many decades. So people like Billy Madison, he's been at it for a few years now. Neil Ayrton and his son James Ayrton, I think, are fantastic, and have both been around for many years. Again, thousands of matches between them all, many thousands. Over here, I don't think that referees get. I'm not saying it just because I'm a referee myself. I'm saying it because I don't think that referees get the appreciation that they deserve in here. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not just the match; it's obviously them as a person as well. A lot of the referees over here are so loved backstage on top of their match ability as well, which I think is another main focus that people should have in terms of having people on a show, if you know what I mean. And yeah, so.
So what would you consider like a bucket list thing for you to accomplish? What more do you want to accomplish as a referee?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I never really had any intention of getting involved physically. It was literally only if it weren't for those first two matches that I refed for LWP 3 years ago now. So the one in Boston between Aaron Sharp and Steve Sykes, and the second one between Marco Marinelli and CW Davis. I never would have started, but I think that was the best time for me to start because since then, since refereeing them matches, I've been non-stop, and I'm massively grateful to every promoter who has had me on a singular show, multiple shows. I'm very, very booked up next year, already. And yeah, in terms of a bucket list, probably to, like as we were just speaking about, probably to go overseas and do a show. And yeah, whether that be for I don't know, like anywhere like in Europe, out in the out the States, out in Canada, or even to work for a major promotion if they ever do like a tour over it. You know, New Japan, like they do shows over here like now and again. Pro Wrestling Noah about a year and a bit back did a collaboration, couple of shows with Progress Wrestling down in London. And yeah, so whether it gets me to work for a major company on a tour in the UK, then that'll be great. And yeah, or even to work overseas, because for a British wrestling ref, it's pretty much unheard of to work overseas. Steve Linsky works all over Europe on a very regular basis. You know, and obviously, if you're a ref, you'd pretty much only tend to work overseas if you work for a company that's doing a show overseas, like if you know what I mean. Yeah, so getting to do that would be great. And get to the big 1,000 matches, which I'm just under 700 matches away from getting 1,000
Well,
matches.
yeah, I could have
So
something to work to. I also
yeah,
would be curious to say if you could ref any match between any two wrestlers, living or dead, what match would you want that to be?
my all-time favorite wrestler has always been The Undertaker. Right? Has always been the Undertaker. Growing up as a kid, loved him. So getting to work with him would have been fantastic. Obviously, like he retired a couple of years back now, didn't he? So the Undertaker would probably be someone. Uh, who against? Oh dear, probably like a Hulk Hogan or someone.
I'll tell you this: one of the best matches I ever saw live was The Undertaker against Bret Hart. If you wanted to ref a match,
Yeah,
that's the match you would want to do because
yeah,
he worked such a great match with Bret Hart. Those two had such respect for each other and they worked so great. And it was just, the two of them fought each other right to the very end. I think the match that I saw, Bret Hart was champion. I think he beat The Undertaker, but it was like a
yeah,
count out or something like that. It wasn't a clean pin
yeah.
or something like that. So, hey, that's always a good, inspiring thing to do. Evan, another question for our guest?
Sure. So I'm a huge Will Ospreay fan.
Oh mate, yeah.
Who do you think could break out worldwide that you're currently seeing in England? And I just hate when the fans do oh, Osprey's just a spot monkey. I'm like, you guys are insane. This guy's great. I mean, I'm jaded. I'm going to wrestling 50 plus years and I'm saying this guy's great. And, the fans, especially the WWE fans, oh, he's just a spot monkey. The guy's an artist and he's
Mm.
unique. So who do you think from all the guys you work for all these promotions, who do you think could make it? Like really break out and you know hit it big?
So there's a lad who is probably about 8 months older than what I am. Um, uh, Jack Landers. I've known Jack since I want to say about 2014, through Falling Star Wrestling. He is criminally underused. He did a month-long tour out in Japan. About a year and a half ago, he was personally invited out by Tajiri to do this tour of Japan. A few months back, he did a show in Italy, over there, and he's very much skilled like Will Ospreay. Um, and I am absolutely flabbergasted that he didn't go international sooner. I've put it down to, had it not have been for COVID, I personally do think he'd have done stuff overseas a bit sooner. Um, and yeah, because he's one of them where he literally lives, breathes, eats, bleeds, uh, like pro wrestling. And he's like, if you ever want to see of like matches of like Jack, 'cause there's no end of matches on YouTube and on Facebook, I very much recommend for anybody listening to this podcast to go and watch matches of Jack Landers, because he is certainly someone to watch out for. And I'm surprised, I really am surprised on how he's not, become a very big name already. And yeah, so Jack Landers is one of them. Who else do I work with? Young Horace, I think he's very capable of being a bigger name than like what he is. Matty Mayhem, Joey Hayes, Dan Evans, he's fantastic. Harley Hudson has has signed for TNA in their knockouts division. Drill, John Allen is, I think, great, and yeah, Jake McCluskey, Lucian Phillips, Samuel Jacobs,
Well, if these are folks that by the way, they're welcome to come on this program. I'd love to interview them too.
Yeah.
There's one question that I had for you that Evan brought up, sort of with his previous comment, which is that in the United States, there's a real big deal if you're a WWE fan or if you're an AEW fan. And online, those two groups just attack each other all the time. Does that happen in England too? Is that the kind of thing that happens out there? Or is that just a U.S. phenomenon?
Between AEW and WWE, yes. Thing is, with over here in the UK, I think there's a lot of promotions where I think the fans get too involved. And obviously when promoters fall out and, like there's backstage politics and like what have you, that's sort of when the attacks happen. I always stay out of backstage politics because it just does my head in. And yeah, like the fans will slate off people who they don't even know personally, like to like the end of the world and like till the cows come home. And yeah, but I think in terms of kayfabe, it is, like, if you want to call it that, between WWE and AEW, yes. Um, and yeah, like I think you, it's the same with Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer, and Jim Cornette. You know, like, I know several people who listen to one podcast but hate the other. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, me personally, I'm just a wrestling fan. Do you know what I mean? I watch
Yeah,
Raw
Evan
and
and I don't
SmackDown every week.
understand it either. We don't get that
Yeah,
either.
yeah,
We're on we will consume any wrestling in any form that it's
yeah.
presented to us.
No, no. I haven't watched Raw or SmackDown since 2016.
But you'll watch the
I watch
pay-per-views.
the pay-per-views
So
because you
you don't have a
expect,
ban against watching the
yeah, you'll
WWE.
expect on the pay-per-view they'll have one or two or three quality matches, but
But
the
you go to
TV.
indie shows too. You've gone to GCW and you've
Oh
gone to,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you if it's offered to you, you accept it for how it's offered to you as wrestling.
I just
And if it's a
won't.
bad match or something,
I
that's
just won't
different.
invest 3 hours watching Raw or SmackDown or whatever because I'm 103 years old. You know, my time is limited. So, I, I no, seriously, it's just I'd rather go to the gym or watch a great movie. But
Yeah.
I did invest 5.5 hours yesterday watching AEW, and it's a mixed bag also. I mean, not every match is. I'm not going to remember some of it 3 weeks from now, but
Mm.
but all in all, AEW puts on some very good pay-per-views, and
Yeah, they
WWE
do.
is more
Yeah.
hit and miss.
Yeah,
But
like
yeah,
with
but
me, I watch Raw and SmackDown every week. I watch
I'm
Dynamite
sorry.
and Collision every week.
it's we don't you and I would gather from Bobby don't have the tribalism thing going where it's like AEW is my brand. Nothing the WWE ever puts out is any good
No,
ever. Even when it's
I think Gunther is great, and I think Io Sky is great, and I think Cody's great. I think on the right night,
and I'm friends with
Reigns
Bailey, so
can
I
be
can't.
great.
Mm.
I'm personally friends with Bailey, so I can't hate the WWE product. I'm friends with Tom Castor, the referee, the next referee. We basically started off together in APW, and he's the next. So I mean, I can't hate a product just blank right out flat because I never know when someone I work with is going to show up in
Mm.
AEW or the WWE. So I can't say that either product is terrible, but yeah, there's been disappointments, I mean, that's for sure. And there've been cards that haven't been so great on both sides. But I
Mm.
don't but there's a tribalism that goes on in the United States a lot of times where it just you can't accept AEW because it's a rival to the WWE. You can't accept the WWE because it's a rival to AEW. And I was curious if that kind of tribalism makes it to your end of the aisle,
Mm.
but it looks
Yeah.
like it does. So that's
But
interesting.
you could argue the same with like Pepsi and Coke. Do you know what I mean? Like if you don't like one of them, like, I'm sure that you'll happily like drink the other. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, like it's the same like with any rival brand. Do you know what I mean? Like if you don't like one, then I'm sure if it was on offer, then like, I'm sure that you'd have
But
the
I
other.
don't hate
Do
other
you know what I
people
mean?
that drink Pepsi. I'm a huge Diet Coke guy, but I don't hate someone because they drink Diet Pepsi.
I
And
hate
that's
to
a
tell
problem.
you, I hate to tell you guys, but Coke, Pepsi, and Diet Coke are unhealthy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm more of a Pepsi Max person to the point where I may as well like have shares in Pepsi. Do you know what I mean? Like I drink that much of it, like, I may as well like have shares. Coke Zero.
So there you go. That's the. But again, I don't hate people because they drink it. I won't order it myself in the restaurant. But it's in the U.S. we seem to have this either or mentality where
Yeah.
you have to love one and you have to despise the other, and you can't give any credit to the wrestlers in one fed because
Well,
they
look at the
work for the fed
politics
here.
here. Republicans versus Democrats. Oh my God.
Mm.
I mean, the whole country's divided. So, yeah.
It's the exact same over here. Labour, Conservative, Reform. Like if you vote for one and not the other, you're a scumbag. if you like support this person, you're a scumbag. If you don't support the other person, then you're a scumbag.
There's a lot of scumbags over there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere around 50%, depending on who you ask.
Yeah. Exactly. If you're a
Wow.
Brexiteer, you're a scumbag. If you're not a Brexiteer, then you're a scumbag. Do you know what I mean? You know. Yeah. So.
Wow. I could talk to you all night about stuff like Judge Dredd, Weetabix, 2000 AD, and Monty Python.
Weetabix. Oh, mate, I grew up on Weetabix. Them and Shreddies. My God, they're to die for.
Yeah, no, my best friend growing up when I was a kid was from England, and he introduced me to all that stuff, in the early days. But I could go on and on and on about all my Anglophile stuff and
Bobby, before we let you go, I'm much older than you guys. One of my favorite living directors is Mike Leigh. You know Mike Leigh? Secrets
Can't
and
say
Lies.
I do by name.
What's that?
Can't say that I do by name, no.
Secrets and Lies, Leigh, Mike Leigh. This guy does these brilliant films about working class Londoners just trying to survive, and beautiful indie films. And check them out, because I'm telling you, they'll rip your heart out, some of these movies. The guy's a brilliant director. He's one of the greatest living directors.
Same with Terry Gilliam. I'd go with
Terry,
that.
well, Terry Gilliam's more out there. Yeah, Mike Leigh does films about real people, and not documentaries, but like working class people. Yeah.
Mm.
Wonderful. Well, so I want to give you a minute so that you can promote yourself, any British feds anything that you have coming up, or how people can get a hold of you through social media.
So for anybody, for any promoters who are interested in booking, so like my stage name is the Salazar. So like my actual name is Bobby Salazar, spelled Salazar. I had to think for a minute then. And then like my stage name is spelled Salastar. Again, had to think for a minute. Yeah, so my Facebook is like my actual name, Bobby Salazar. Anybody's interested in booking me, just send me a DM on there. I can provide hundreds of photos and videos of matches that I've done. Currently, at the time of recording this podcast, I've refereed 214 matches to date in just a little over 3 years. Made my debut on October the 1st, 2022. People who I'd like to plug, go check out Championship Extreme Wrestling, CXW, and Certified Pro Wrestling. They will be a home promotion of myself in 2026. The CXW brand have got massive deathmatch shows coming up next year with the likes of Mickey Knuckles, the Necro Butcher, Schlack.
Oh, Necro Butcher, yeah.
Yeah, he's coming over to England.
We worked with Necro Butcher on The Wrestler.
Oh, did you?
Nice guy, yeah. Nice guy. I tell a story about him in my book, Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets. A funny Necro Butcher story. Yeah.
Yeah. He's coming over to England on one of the weekenders that we've got coming up next year.
He's a nice guy, super nice guy.
He is.
And very soft-spoken, totally different than his in-ring persona.
Yeah. This is the thing, though, with quite a few people. Like, the ring persona and them as a legit person. Two completely polar opposites. Do you know what I mean? And I think Necro is one of the prime examples. And So go check them out. Kmart Promotions, I've got a lot coming up with them next year. Squared Circle Wrestling Academy, run by British wrestling legend Marty Jones. Go check them out. I've got a few shows with them coming up next year. Big Top Wrestling Promotions again, another home promotion. And keep supporting professional wrestling. I also run the Nerdic Pro podcast as well. Got a few lined up with Mike Mondo, current NWA National Heavyweight Champion. AJ Kazana. He's a former two-time NWA US Tag Team Champion. A former United States Champion in WWE. Towards the end of January, start of February next year, will be coming on to the Nordic Pro podcast. Can't specifically say who it is publicly, but as of yet, but that'll be a very big podcast coming up. So yeah, the Nordic Pros on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. Not updated the Spotify for a couple of years, but like planning on getting back to that at some point in the near future. So yeah, keep supporting pro wrestling, keep supporting wrestling podcasting, and
Well, it's been really
wrestling is
wonderful.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's really been wonderful to have you on the show tonight, and we'd really like to have you on again. I know the timing wasn't so perfect for you, but maybe we can pick a time that's a little bit easier for you. You're not up at 3 a.m. in England time, so I feel guilty about that. But you've been a great guest. Really loved having you. If you want to bring some other members of your feds to get interviewed in the United States, we'd love to have them on. I can listen to the accent all night long. I really
Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
Honestly,
and
thank you very much.
We'll be in
guys.
touch. Good night, everyone. And that's